Hello, Steve Wilson from Grand Junction, Colorado, addressing this thing called aging. As you can see in the background, I have a little lady looking for the fountain of youth. And I have also a fellow that didn't look for the fountain of youth and he got himself quite aged. That was me. It only took me 50 years to do that with knowledge of what I was doing. But you see, a little stubbornness gets you a long way. And I was that. I chose, from a host of reasons, to not pay attention to what I knew to be true. And in fact, I went the wrong direction and I developed that. Well, there was a time in my life when I reached the tipping point. And I returned to my core and I began to understand and I began to study. And with all of the information that's available to us in nutrition, it boils down to a couple of simple common fact features, of which I'd like to entertain with you, because not only are they profitable to you in terms of how you function, but how you look and your self-esteem. And I think that is what we'd like to do. You see, this aging thing, we've thrown in that if you're getting old, then you're probably got a lot of aches and pains, and you got the fatigue, and you got all of those things. That's an easy tent to throw it all under. Well, in my point, I just looked at it and said, well, I don't like this. I don't like how I look. What's it going to take? Because I know enough about science to know that the skin tells us a story frequently of how we are on the inside. And with that, I determined that I probably wasn't really well. In fact, I wasn't. Dealing with debilitating arthritis, dealing with a little bit of chubbiness, dealing with a whole lot of fatigue, lack of flexibility, just on and on. Throw in a little bit of high blood pressure. And I probably am describing so many of you that are looking at this. And we've realized that there's not a whole lot of solutions to it because we're not getting the correct information. Or if we get the correct information, I think many of you are like I was, stubborn. I chose not to pay attention. Well, I'm going to introduce you into some very, very simple approaches to functioning with our personalities. First of all, I think it would be easy to understand the disease lives in an acid mode. So if our food choices, when we consume them, produce acid, then that would mean we just created an environment for disease to live in. Along with that, I think one of the more interesting aspects of this is dealing with these things called frequencies. So a combination of dealing physically with choosing foods that when they metabolize created alkalinity, where there isn't disease and there isn't fatigue. A measuring point would be eating foods that had frequency to them. You see, we now know that the body is made up of electrical charges. We also know, because we all have a microwave, that we can get this thing hot in a hurry. In fact, we can kill things. And so within that realm of starting in the mid-1900s, plenty of studies ranging through today that we have been able to establish that the body is a series of frequencies. For instance, the brain functions in a megahertz speed of it in the mid-90s. Well, if you're going to make that thing, which is a pretty consuming organ, it would make sense to feed it to where it had frequencies, and that means oxygen. Because without oxygen, there is no life. And what we're doing to ourselves, or we're creating problems simply because we haven't understood some fundamental physiology, of which I would like to walk you through. Now, with that kind of on the table, let's discuss it. The body functions in a healthy mode somewhere between 68 and 71 or 2, somewhere in that arena. We know that disease begins to enter as you drop below that mid-60s. So if that's the case, then why wouldn't we eat foods that elevated the frequency? Because if you're going to create an environment the disease won't live in, That means you have to be somewhat alkaline and have a higher frequency in tissue. We also now know that cancer lives in a megahertz speed of about 40. Well, this doesn't get really difficult. It's not a whole lot of science involved in this. If you eat foods that have a zero frequency, such as processed foods, such as canned foods, then that would mean you are just building an environment for disease to live in. And it's from that viewpoint that we're eating foods right now and building this body, and it's going to be our house that we move into in 10 years. I would think that we would want to do it from a structural viewpoint that would give us our best possible results. So we need to really concentrate. And if the foods that we're eating are dead, they have no DNA, they have no ability to create life, and they certainly can't open up the cells to absorb oxygen, then I dare say that we're on that road that is not really, really, really good. In fact, frequently we look at the mirror, we consume sugars, if you will, and salts, because those are emotional things, and they give us a whole bunch of energy for a short period of time, but the end result of it is we just crash. And I think everyone knows that. So we're addicted to the energy side and through sugar. Well, if we understood what sugar was doing to us, and if what I believe is that life is nothing but a series of trades, I would ask you this simple question. Would you trade that old, tired, beat-up body in for one that's younger, more energy, fewer pains? Would that interest you if we could prove it a kind of a simple, no-nonsense approach, that if we can elevate the frequencies of your body, and you could see in me that there has been a difference, and it is of value because those things that I had before are gone. Now, I'm not as fast as I once was, but you know something? I don't hurt. And that's important to me and to you. As we go through life, all we have to do is do a simple thing of being disciplined enough to look at this thing and say, all right, I'm willing to give in to a 30-day approach to eating foods that were alive, that were not processed, and having positive thoughts, listening to good music. What a difference these things will make in your life. And I would like to point out kind of some very, very simple things that about the skin and about the blood. We know from looking at tissue, such as mine, that if it's not pretty, we cover it up with cosmetics, very expensive cosmetics. But those cosmetics are made frequently from petroleum, from waxes that coat the skin. And therefore, the skin in its own right is the largest organ of the body. It is a huge elimination system. So if the things that we're putting into our body are called cell junk, and we have difficulty removing them from the system because the liver is not functioning, two things come to mind. We would want to put something into our body that cleaned the liver. And we would want something to put into our body that would cause vasodilation in the cell and in the arteries to where we would literally get that to pulsate and deliver more oxygen with nutrients that build tissue. Well, red beets comes to mind. So we put together a product that started with a core of red beets. The other side of this coin is over the years, we have found ourselves gaining a lot of weight. Sweet potatoes has the ability to control a couple of hormones, adiponectin and ghrelin, which are your hunger hormones. So your satiety comes up and you don't ravage. You don't just kind of graze all the time. If we have foods that are nutrient dense and rich, the thing that comes from that is we don't desire to eat all of this stuff. All I see are people wandering around town with something in their hand, something in their mouth, eating all day long. Attributes to the weight that we have. With the weight, then we have more toxins, but we have a place to store them. So in this case, our skin is kind of an indicator as to what's going on in the inside. Now, all at once, if we could put these things into our system in food form and create this vasodilation and increase in oxygen flow to tissue, to cells. And you can see it here with the studies that are available to us, that in fact, in 12 weeks, these government studies showed that we could increase oxygen flow or blood flow by upwards to 66%. Now, along with that, if we could find a source of the plant world that would increase the frequency, all at once we could alter the frequency to where disease wouldn't live in it. Now, that would be a common sense approach. And by the way, a very inexpensive one because we eat less. Along with that, we need to find a source of cleaning products. You see, the body has got to be clean. If you have clean tissue, if you have clean cells, to make a point at the cellular level, if cells are talking to one another, the disease goes down. So if we put things into our body that would clean the cells internally, along with adding oxygen, along with all of the amenities of giving you flexibility because your tissues are clean, less cell friction, less aging. So we have intervened in the environment that disease lives in, and that's the aging process. What a novel thought. But it calls for you to be responsible and to take charge of your life. Our job is to share with you. Your job is to share with others because we're all looking for the same solution. It is no fun to be in pain. It is no fun to be fatigued. And the stress that goes with that, my gosh, we can deal with all of these things. And we would love to work with you and increase blood flow, lower blood pressure perhaps, if we can increase that, increase your mental capabilities, the cognitive skills, intervene in that world, increase your energy loads, reduce your recovery time when you work out, the pain that goes with that. There are so many pluses for so little money. It will surprise you in the end. And that's our commitment to you, is to walk with you, show you the things that we've experienced, how we can alter this. Join us in this, will you? Thank you.